So now we are doing question number 5. Identify two things that he believed his music could do. So, in these situations, please try to give an introduction about the two things that Beethoven believed. Like, don't start with he, because it just doesn't make sense. uh, just prepare yourself to write cohesively. So in that you can write about believe that he genuinely thought, on the last page it says that his music had the strength to transform lives, transform, to free people from miseries, from troubles, and to transform the world. So he thought that he always used to think that if there's one thing that can change the world, is that would be music. If there's one thing that can change people from their worries, from their problems, that is music, and because he used to produce such original um, compositions, despite of the fact that he could not hear his own compositions, is something that proves that he believed in what he said, what he wanted to say. You have to write that in 45 words. Question number 6. Give two examples to show how Beethoven's ailment became his strength. In a normal situation, I think anyone who's going through an incurable disease would be left with very less self confidence, I should say. But in a situation like Beethoven, he took strength from his disease, from his ailment. Although he knew that his disease is incurable, he tried to take advice from many doctors, but it was all of no use. Here it says on that um, he got inspired um, from his disease, because the inspiration within him fired his imagination. That means the driving force of making such beautiful notes of music was his deafness, and allowed him to create some of the most beautiful musical compositions of all the time. That's something that. And apart from that, you can also mention that that how he started taking strength from the inner resources. He just did not leave everything and said, okay, fine, now what is the point of making music when I cannot enjoy it? He kept on and actually contributed to the originality of his compositions, and he made it a point that he's making things originally. He produced music, and then apart from that, he always used to correct himself again and again and again, till the time he came to a point where he got what he really wanted. Also, at the time, you also have to mention that how he says that mm, that it is the only thing that he used to live for, and he lived for. Although he had thoughts that he wanted to end his life because he became deaf, but then music was the only thing that gave him inspiration to move on. So I have to mention all that in 60 words. Section B, how would you describe Beethoven? So in this situation, you have to describe about what kind of a person Beethoven was, based on whatever we did in the chapter. Did he give up his passion because of his illness, or did he work harder? So, what do you think? Was he just sitting idly, or did he produce one of the most original, beautiful compositions ever in the history of Western classical music? So, take out two examples where you can find that he worked or he did not work, where you have to hunt for these, and you have to write the answer in 80 words. Okay. Section C. These questions require an in-depth understanding of the text. If you have understood whatever we discussed yesterday and today, it says point one, and this is a discussion. Although now we are not in the class, so you'll have to just analyze and understand things before you can write something about it. A thing is ironical when it is totally opposite to what it seem or meant to be. Ironical here in this situation is because although he was deaf, but then he produced one of the most beautiful compositions in the world of music, which is quite the opposite. Point out what you find ironical in the story. What is ironical? What is opposite of what is happening? Just give me two examples of ironical situations in this. One example, let's say. You have to write it in your notebook. Do you think the title of the passage, the Resolute Composer, do you think it is suitable? Resolute means, as I said yesterday, someone who's determined to do something against all odds, despite of the fact of all the problems and shortcomings that Beethoven faced. He still proved to be one of the best music composers in the world. So, do you think we need to change the topic, or the topic is correct? If the topic is justified, yes, then why? If the topic is not justified, why? You have to mention that in 40 words. Look at the picture of Beethoven's grave. This is Beethoven's grave, a beautiful grave here. It simply says Beethoven. It doesn't say anything about when was he born, when did he die, just his name. Do you think this has any significance? Look at the picture very in detail. Take some time, and then just try to describe it in 35 words. And then section A on page number 117 is a crossword. I hope you do play crossword on newspapers. Excuse me for my sore throat. Try to fill this crossword and take a screenshot of this crossword when you're uploading it on the Google Classroom. This is on continued on the next page also. Now, section A is a listening part. You need to please take help from Google or internet or YouTube. Close your eyes and listen to one of Beethoven's famous symphonies, famous compositions. Remember that the composer of his music was completely deaf. He could not hear anything, and yet he could compose such wonderful music. What are the first four words that come into your mind as you listen? If you were to paint a picture of this music, which colors would you choose? So basically, I just want you to listen to one of his compositions and then explain what you feel. How can a deaf person make such beautiful music? Tell me, what was the music about? Give me some introduction about one of his compositions. What did you listen, and how did you feel in 65 words? This is a video that you have to upload. This is not this is a project. So make a video and no, this is okay. Don't make a video. Just write this. Try to visualize the music. Try to imagine the music and try to imagine how Beethoven was. And I try to explain it in 65 words. No, don't make a video. Okay. Next, does your school have a regular practice of evacuating the school building during an emergency such as earthquake? When I was growing up and the school where I went to in Srinagar in Kashmir, we always used to have these mock drills, about earthquake, about fire, and we suddenly, we come to know that we have to rush out and we used to go to the fire station, and see how things work. So if you haven't experienced something like that, wow, that how to prepare yourself if there's an earthquake or a fire. Evacuating means when you have to leave or vacate. Have you seen the map of the route to be taken during such an evacuation? Have you seen people evacuating, in these in these kind of situations? So imagine one of your classmates is differently abled. He has special needs, and he cannot run, or he react as fast as normal children. So how would you react, and how would you help? Prepare a speech for the class to make them aware of how you could help him or her during an evacuation, during such an emergency. So which means that you have to know how to write a speech. Keep it in the parking lot. I'm just explaining what needs to be done. The next class that we do is we are starting grammar And so I'll teach you speech writing before you are in a position to write this. Keep it in the work parking lot. When I teach you speech writing, I'll come back to this and then you can upload it separately. That's okay. Just mention that. So these are the things. This is a grammar. Go to section A on page number 119. This is grammar part. We'll do it later. As a responsible member of the Students' Council of your school, you feel that not much thought is being given to specially able students at major functions such as sports day or annual day. Talk to at least three specially abled students at school or in your neighborhood to find out how they would like to contribute or participate. If you cannot find three, if you even if you can find one, that is okay. I can understand. You know, giving the keeping in mind the restrictions. If you cannot find anyone, that is also fine. I'm not going to force you, because if you cannot find anyone around, then you can't help it in lockdown. But what you can do is that you can write a letter. This is a formal letter and you know how to write it. So you can write a formal letter to the school management, your school management, with 3 5 bullet points. That means main points that you want to include about, and you want to talk about how differently abled or specially abled students should have some kind of contribution in school functions. So here are the some date, time, duration, and venue, kind of activities, adjustments in the program that might be needed, practice schedule, expected outcome. So these are things that, and if you want to add something out of your own and not use these, that's also fine. Basically, you just want feedback from a specially able students' perspective, as in what are the things that needs to be added, keeping these students in mind. So this is a formal letter that you have to write. Just keep your school's name. That is fine. If you were to come face to face with Beethoven, what questions would you ask him? How he managed to compose? Just ask 3 questions and write it in your notebook about how did he manage to compose these kind of questions. Do you know of a specially abled person who's famous, a celebrity in any field, sports or anything? Identify any one such person, and find out how he or she overcame the problems to achieve success. So basically, you have to give a description in 70 words about a differently able person who's famous in his own field, any field that you can think of, and then take some help from internet and write about what are the things that he faced, what are the problems that he or she faced, and how did they overcome this problem. So this is the end of the discussion. I'm repeating, on page number 118 you have a speech, but you will do this only when I teach you speech writing, when I teach you the format of speech writing in the next class. And the grammar portion on page number 119 has to be done only when we do clauses. Okay, so that is, you can just keep it in the parking lot. We are attempting section A of page number 119, and then we finish with page number 120. This homework should be uploaded on Google Classroom by 9th of July. I just want to write it so that I don't forget. So that's it, and then we'll do the grammar portion. We'll start grammar now in the next video. I'll see you guys.